Welcome to Screen Quest, a podcast where a fellowship of film lovers and armchair movie experts plays film roulette. I'm one of your hosts, Chris Waterman, joined by Will Rotondi
Hey, what's going on?
and May Finch.
Hello, hello.
Got a little game show hosty on that introduction. I was like, what is this like inflection I'm doing with my voice? Anyway, welcome to this week's podcast where we'll be covering Lethal Weapon 2 for our first Shipwreck, which is our shoehorned romance main quest. And of course, we will be drawing a side quest. But first, apropos of this film and the subject matter, we thought we would check in, and I think we've maybe covered this once on the podcast. I think we're all reasonably sure we have, but if we have, this will be a bit of a refresher. But we wanted to define the term fridging the girlfriend, or fridging the girl, I think it's called, but fridging for short, which comes into play very much in this film. So May, give us your best sort of synopsis, or truncated version of what does this mean?
I didn't realize I was delivering this, but yeah, okay. So fridging is when you motivate your typically male protagonist to actually take action on a thing, or part of his motivation is the sudden death of their girlfriend, lover, wife person. And usually there isn't a ton of reason behind the killing. It can vary, but as we've seen this particular movie, it's just kind of like, kill her to get to him, wahaha, sort of deal. And I think it's called fridging because of a movie it was prominent in that involved stuffing the girl in the fridge. Is that correct? I forget which
I am
movie.
double checking. I thought it was a comic plot, but hold please. It was coined by Gail Simone, and I found through my research that she had a website called womeninrefrigerators.com, which sounds awesome. Both like ironically and unironically like awesome. But yes, I guess it refers to an incident in Green Lantern Volume 3, in which Kyle Rayner, the title hero, comes home to his apartment to find that the villain Major Force has killed his girlfriend Alexandra DeWitt and stuffed her in a refrigerator. And of course, this led to Gail Simone, who's one of the most amazing writers in comics, like still today, to kind of do a deep dive into like this as a trope, specifically in comic books. But of course, as we know from our film journey, that like this is something that crops up a lot in movies and TV as well.
Crops up a lot, and it pisses me off for three reasons. One, just because it's almost always followed by another annoying trope, which is the dead wife montage. And I'm really sick of that one too. Two, it is just very sexist because you're acknowledging the woman's only there to be a plot element. And three, it's just unrealistic. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I've never met a man who would be driven to homicide by the death of their loved one.
Yeah, I mean, I
if
think
they weren't already, that kind of person.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those things that like I'm of two minds about this. So I think like this has been done sort of like well a few times in a film when it's like really supported by like other good developments, like I think to like Godfather 1, right? Like spoilers for that film if you haven't seen it, where Michael Corleone's wife in Sicily is like, blown up in a car bomb like attack that's intended for him. That doesn't feel like it's particularly trying to like drive the audience to like unearned emotional response to that. Like he was always sort of going to go back to America. It's just kind of like a, for lack of a better word, like something horrible that happens like to him on his sort of journey to become who he is. Like it doesn't fundamentally change the character, in other words, or like alter his motivations. And I feel like it's a scene that still has pretty good impact because it's like, he's happy, he's met this woman. Like, I don't know. I feel like that's like an example where it's done well. And then there's movies like John Wick that resist the urge to do that. Like, I think that's a film that really like handles like where you think that trope, like his dead wife is kind of the motivation, but like through like the analog of the dog, right? Like
Right.
the smart thing they do in that film is she's died, from a cancer, right, or something, like some disease maybe that they don't name before the movie starts. So like you kind of get that, but like not really, right? Like, and I think that's a smart way to handle it. But how do you guys feel about like this? I mean, I think when this is done poorly, we can all agree it sucks and it's just like eye rolly, but I'll stop talking now. I'm curious to hear what you guys think.
I'm sorry, but I disagree with you on the Godfather doing it right. I got really pissed off in that scene.
Really? Yeah, okay.
Because she's not really given much time or much character, and then they just kill her off, and then it is a plot device. Like, it's pretty straightforward fridging to me. I think it's a good movie, and maybe that makes it more acceptable because it's not the whole movie, it's just a small part. But I do agree with you on John Wick, and for me it's because they make it very clear that this isn't just someone he loved, this is someone that he left the profession for and changed his entire life for, and that new life kind of disappears when the dog gets killed and he's dragged back in. So he's not just mourning her, he's mourning his like one chance at a normal life. What do you think, Will?
Yeah, it's I don't think I'd have anything more to add to it than that. I feel like it is very much an excuse oftentimes in the plot just to have the female character killed off, and then it's supposed to be like getting revenge is the motivating factor. Like it feels I guess to compare it to this, since we're on the Mel Gibson train right now, Braveheart. You know?
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, great, you guys have something good going, right? You're good now, and then not so good, and so it gets kind of yeah, frustrating. I feel like it's probably frustrating is like I guess the least of it that you could have for that, like the feeling from that, because I'm sorry, I am all over the place tonight. I It's like you're trying to answer the question. I feel like a politician right now trying to answer a question.
I won't. I promise I won't yell at you.
Really bad. The things are really bad because they're bad because like people don't like the things, and so let me. But yeah, I think in Braveheart is a good example. I think it maybe in a lot of 80s and 90s that was sort of like that was the plot device where if somebody hooked up with another character, if there was even a chance that there was going to be like, I feel like often like historical period pieces, like battles are going to happen. So like one of those characters is going to die, right? Like it's either going to be the combo of the hero is going to impregnate the lady and she's going to have the kid who's going to carry on his legacy, or she's going to die and he's going to go on. And so I feel like this is one of those two that it typically happens a lot in either action or like Gladiator or historical films. I guess Gladiator might even be another example. Although I feel like in that one, that might be a little bit better in the fact that like his whole family gets killed and
Bridging the family. Like, you need a chest freezer for that, baby.
I know.
Get them all stuffed in there.
Like not just like betrays, like he thinks he's like done his duty, and then it's like, nope, you're chained up, you crossed the wrong guy, and now your family will pay for it too. So that might be an example of something where I think was actually done well, even though it still pissed me off. But I think it did it well for them.
You're pro fridging the whole family.
Yeah, just whole thing, just all in one fell swoop. But I think.
Walk in the family. There we go. Oh,
jeez. But I do agree with you, Bay. I think that it's often overused enough to the point where it becomes frustrating. I mean, granted, a lot of female characters back then weren't very deep anyway, and so that's another point of frustration. But then it's like adding insult to injury, where then you're just going to kill them off. So yeah. Those are my thoughts. Those are my political thoughts. Nice. Bridging.
Thank you for opening up, Will.
You're welcome.
Fridging to come on this week's episode. But first, we can go ahead and draw a side quest and see what Lady Luck has in store for us. So let's see what it's going to be. And I just shuffled them. But I forgot to switch over to the I'm just like all over the place too. See, Will, it's contagious. I switched to the 4-person view, so it was like a Picasso painting there for a second.
Gotta watch out.
So let's go ahead and shuffle the side quest again, so it's on camera, and we'll see what we get. Ew, cool. It is Furry Friends, which is our
Aw.
nominate a favorite animal character in a film or a movie about animals. We'll open it up to either or. I think last time we had was it Homeward Bound that we talked about this one, right?
I think that was
Yeah.
mine. Yeah.
Aw.
Are we counting fictional animals in this too? This is just like a question, like
Like CGI generated?
or like puppets, like I mean like fictional creatures, you know what I mean? Like would that count?
I'd say I'd allow it. I feel like that.
Sure.
Yeah, we should open the whole thing wide open to that.
I
Well
mean,
then I've got to nominate my homeboy Gizmo the Mogwai from
Nice.
Gremlins.
Oh yeah.
I
Gizmo.
think is like one of the like greatest like little like cute characters that walks that line of like an intelligent like creature but is still very much an animal, if that makes sense, like
Yeah.
they never made him so smart that like he wasn't believable as like a pet, I guess, you know what I mean. But yeah, I love Gizmo, and it blew my mind as a young adult to find out that Howie Mandel was the voice of Gizmo. Like that's just so crazy to me. Like
What?
the guy that's Deal or No Deal, like to
That's
imagine like that's
hilarious.
the voice behind Gizmo, but it's true. In particular, I love Gizmo in Gremlins 2, the new batch, which is sort of like a satire of the original film, which was already kind of like zany and all over the place. um he's just amazing, like when he puts the little headband on because he sees Rambo on the TV, and he makes his little like Rambo like kit out of like a little match and a paper clip and a rubber band for his bow and arrow. It's just the most adorable damn thing. So I feel like the rest of it speaks for itself. Gizmo fans in the house?
Absolutely. Love him when he's driving around that little car in the first one, right? At the very
Oh
end.
yeah.
Isn't that what?
His little
Yeah.
ears are going.
Yeah. He's
My gosh.
adorable.
Feel like
He
a
was
fake fan because I haven't actually seen Gremlins, but I've seen images of Gizmo.
you
I've
have
seen
to
images
watch
of
it.
Gizmo.
Yeah.
So uh Gremlins is both a great Halloween and a Christmas film, so it's one of those ones that kind of straddles the line.
Thanksgiving
And it,
film.
yeah, there you go. And it I think along with Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is responsible for the PG-13 rating, because they were like, this is too intense for PG. Like it had a lot of dark themes, and like it was pretty gory for like in terms of like the gremlins die pretty gruesome ways, like get thrown in the blender and stuff like that. um but
Oops.
it wasn't bad enough for an R. But Gremlins 2 is like just a joy because, like I said, it is very much like a satire parody of like the original. They made it like with the intent of like almost doing like a postmodern, like break the fourth wall, go balls to the wall, like a lot of like the critics that like didn't like Gremlins. In fact, like I think Leonard Maltin hated Gremlins the original and loved the second one, and I think has like a cameo in the second one. Like the whole concept of it like floored him to like do something kind of postmodern. But um recommend watching them for sure. Just want a good time.
That's right. Before Baby Yoda, there was Gizmo.
And he's cuter, in my opinion, than Grogu, because he sings, he's got his little like high trilly like singing voice, and yeah.
Yeah. He
I would
is
be down
adorable.
for a Gremlins like Renaissance.
Hell
Bring back
yeah.
Gremlins.
I think there's that animated show on HBO actually,
There
that just
is.
came
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
It's like Mogwai something, like it's, I don't know, it's like expands the lore. They're like this mythical creature that comes from somewhere in the east, and a man in Chinatown, New York or San Francisco, like has it as a pet. And like the whole story of like the first film is like this inventor comes in trying to bring a souvenir back for his son, tries to buy the Mogwai, as it's called, and like the guy's like, no, like this way too much responsibility for like anybody really, like who doesn't know how to care for these things. And then like his grandson, knowing that they need money, like sells the Mogwai to the inventor and tells him like the rules. He's like, all right, here's how you care for these, like very, very careful. And of course, like the teenage son fucks it up immediately, like, and all hell breaks loose. So,
Oh yeah. Well, I need to go on HBO then.
Yep. I don't know if the animated show is worth a shit, but I would say start with the OG, and then part 2 is certainly like really, really good.
Or not HBO Max, I guess. Just Max.
That's right.
Don't even get me started on rebranding like one of the most prestigious names in like all of entertainment to something that like anyway.
Yep.
I will not digress. So I will switch us back to our main view here, and let's transition to some Lethal Weapon 2, which I will remember to like summarize the plot this time. I'm bad about that occasionally when I present, but I think it's important in this film. So to understand Lethal Weapon 2 and why I think this is a particular egregious example of the shoehorn romance and fridging the girlfriend, we have to kind of step back a couple of years to the original Lethal Weapon, which I think like is an amazing film, like in and of its own. So like the great action movie, better than average writing, some really, really cool stunts, and just an incredible cast. The plot of that film essentially is that we have Martin Riggs, played by Mel Gibson, who is suicidal due to the recent death of his wife, who was in a car accident, and he is on sort of mental health watch in the police department, paired with Danny Glover, who is quote getting too old for that shit. He's contemplating retirement. He is very much by the book, follow the rules. And anyway, like fast forward, they kind of are like oil and water at first, and then they get thrown on this case together and slowly build trust and become really, really good friends. By the end of that film, Mel Gibson is no longer suicidal. He gifts Danny Glover the bullet that he's been saving to like do the job for Christmas, and it's like all very touching and kind of becomes like a honorary member of Murtaugh's family. So where this film picks up is a couple of years later. They are permanent partners, and they stumble upon a nefarious ring of criminals from South Africa who are is it clear, is it just drugs for Krugerrands? Like I wasn't 100% clear on this. I don't know how clear they really make it, like what the deal was. But anyway, they chase this guy, a bunch of Krugerrands fall out of the trunk, and they become involved in another mystery that involves their skills and misadventures. Along the way, Riggs meets a young woman who works for the South African consulate by the name of Rika Vandenhaas. There we go. And I don't know, essentially bumps into her at a grocery store after shooting her boss's fish tank, invites her back to dinner. They have sex, and they are kidnapped, and she is drowned. All the while, the henchman, the heavy, whatever you want to call him, of the film reveals to Riggs that his wife's death was in fact not an accident, but a murder that was intended for Riggs himself, and her car was run off the road. And oh my God, they did it again to his new booty call, because when Riggs is thrown into the water, she is already drowned at the bottom of the bay. This leads Riggs on a murderous rampage, declaring that tonight they are not cops, and they face off in a climactic showdown at the docks with the baddies. And his diplomatic immunity is revoked. Arjun, I think is his name, Arjun. And the bad guys win, with Riggs almost dying and Murtaugh cradling him in his arms as they laugh together, all well in the world. More or less, that's the plot. Miss any important points?
I forgot about the toilet bomb.
Oh yeah, I'll get to that in a second, because it's one of my favorite. Actually, we can talk about it now. It's one of my favorite marketing ploys. So when I was a young lad, they had these things called VHS tapes, which is like for your VCR, which was how you used to watch home movies.
I had those. I'm not that young.
Okay. Oh, maybe some of our listeners haven't. Any event, like they would often do trailers for like films that hadn't even come out on movie theaters yet, like on the VHS tapes. And I distinctly remember, I don't remember what film it was on, but they had like, coming this summer, a trailer for this, and it was a shortened version of that toilet scene. So it's Murtaugh on the toilet, Riggs is trying to like help him out, and then like the toilet comes blasting out of the window, lands on the police thing, and it's like, this summer they're back and they're not taking any crap.
Lethal Weapon 2. This time, they're not taking any crap.
Nice.
So I'll have to see if I can find that and like throw it
Please.
into the this
Amazing.
episode, because it is, maybe at the end we'll do a little special edition. So stay to the end. But it was burned in my brain, and like I didn't know anything about Lethal Weapon. I was probably like 9 or 10. And so I naturally asked I'm like, what is this movie? Like, it looks kind of awesome. And they were like, it's not really like for kids. But my mom was like, I will tell you one story that's really, really funny because it's true. And there's a whole bit in it called like, they fuck you at the drive-through. And like, it's, she was obviously censoring herself a bit. She's like, and it's true, like this happens, and it's a universal thing. So it was quite a few years later until I actually saw the film, but I do remember that scene because of the marketing, where that was how they did it. So yeah. All right. So as always, we're gonna like give initial impressions. And we'll kind of go from there. I'll start with May, because I'm assuming this is your first time seeing Lethal Weapon
It
2.
was, and I will be honest at this point and say I just read a plot summary for the first one, and I
That's
also
fine.
watched the 15-minute cinema sins. So obviously I am an expert on the franchise. I did watch all of this one though, and yeah, I found it really hard to follow plot wise. I'm getting that the first Lethal Weapon was too. Like, I could follow the thread of like Riggs and Murtaugh's relationship super, super well. That seems to be the core of the movie. And I love how it doesn't actually really matter what's going on with like the South African Nazis and all the drug sales and whatever crimes Leo committed. It's really about friendship more than crime.
Yes, 100%. You are correct. I mean, that's why the first film, I think, is regarded as like a classic film, not just a classic action film. Is like, it's the heart of like the movie at the end of the day. Yeah.
Yeah. So I appreciated that. Again, the romance was very shoehorned. I know we'll get into it, but it was like physically uncomfortable for me.
You're not alone. I nominated
Yeah.
it for a reason.
And yeah, I can mostly appreciate like just like the comedy and the buddiness, but I did think it was very ironic that they're like doing a good job, I guess, handling these South African Nazis, but don't ever, unless I missed it, talk about or acknowledge like the US issues with like the KKK and stuff like that.
Oh no, this is very much in the end of the Cold War, where it was like,
Yeah.
the other is bad. Like,
Yeah. South Africa had to be a stand-in.
I like it. Well, I like the first one better. I'll put it that way. First, I enjoyed the first one for what it was. I agree that I thought the writing wasn't too shabby. I thought that the plot seemed interesting enough to keep the characters together. The second one, I felt like just never really. I think it was trying to be more of everything, and it just wasn't succeeding. It was just convoluted. Like, the plot was convoluted. The characters didn't have the same feel, like the language and everything, and it just didn't. I don't know. It didn't feel the same as the first one to me. I thought the romance was very much as much as it felt awkward trying to set it up, felt even more strange that was then like a segue into why his wife died. Because I was just like, wait, whoa, this was a strange twist to try and just throw out there. I mean, I get it for the sake of it being like an 80s action flick, but at the same time, it just felt so just too neat and tidy for a very strange plot. I actually liked it a lot for Joe Pesci. Like, that's between
Right?
the toilet scene and Joe Pesci, Leo, like, I would watch the film just for that, because I find Riggs and Murtaugh to get like exponentially more frustrating, like, to watch. And I find Leo to be much more endearing. And I don't know if it's like an age thing, but now I'm just like, Leo's got some good points. And Riggs and Murtaugh are just assholes to this guy for no reason. Like just unnecessary like police brutality on this man.
Right?
And so yeah. And also I just can't stand like how pushy Riggs is towards Rika, like in the supermarket where he's just like spastically like forcing her to go on a date with him and not taking no for an answer and just making it like he thinks he's being funny and cute, and it's just really obnoxious. So that to me overall, in terms of like the romance side, quote unquote romance of it, I thought that was weird. I'm sure we will talk more about it, but the fact that Rika goes from like realizing what a bad decision it was to hook up with Riggs when his whole house gets shot up on the beach from machine gun fire to suddenly being like, oh, we had a really exciting time tonight, and I'll be here for you. You can come crash at my place. I'm like, well, hold on. You should have known there were a lot of red flags, very blatant, like about 20 minutes ago, that perhaps that should not be your reaction later. But friggin', for the sake of the plot, we had that happen. So but yeah, overall, it tried to be a good sequel. It clearly it got enough of a following to get 2 more films. Um, but yeah, Joe Pesci in the toilet, exploding toilet man. That's where it's at.
Yeah, so I mean, to that, like I'll add I think this movie does a lot of things well, and is great in a lot of ways. I think props to them for using like the social issues of the time and like going away from Russians and like targeting like apartheid and like South Africans, like very much like still in the public conscious and a thing. So like, hey, like I respect like the them trying to, as much as it's sort of surface level, acknowledge the political like issues and sort of like the humanitarian crisis there. Unique, you don't see a lot of South African villains like in films. District 9 I think was like the only other one that came to mind of like that really like that for American films that I can think of that really tackled like apartheid head on, and that was like decades later. I think that has a lot of elements of like why I love Lethal Weapon, which is like it's just one vignette after another of some sort of crazy chase or action sequence full of stupid one-liners. Like I love that, like it's just been revoked, like all that dumb shit. I live for it, like for an action movie. I think it's fabulous. The condom like gag is like one of my favorites. Like it's just so fucking funny. Like I just where he's like, they're never gonna leave it alone, there's gonna be condoms at my desk, and then like sure enough he gets to work and there's just the tree of condoms. Yeah, so a lot of things that really work about the movie for me. Joe Pesci, of course, was a great addition to the cast. Like, okay. Like Leo gets is just one of those characters that gets right in there. But I think like overall, I think like for me, it's like Lethal Weapon and then like 2, 3, 4 are all like kind of just close together. Like here, I know like their reactions to them vary greatly. Like if you look at Rotten Tomatoes or Metacritic, but to me they're all kind of have their good sides and bad sides, like, and I enjoy them all for what they are. Like I don't take any of those movies particularly seriously. Like I think this franchise held out better than say like your Die Hards and stuff. Like well, Die Hard 2 is definitely better than probably Lethal Weapon 2, and I think with a Vengeance maybe, but like subsequent ones, like I would argue Lethal Weapon like 4 is better than any of the other Die Hards after 30. But anyway, like that's a whole debate for later.
I like that versus idea. We should do that later because I already have some thoughts for you on
Lethal
that.
Weapon 1
That's
through
awesome.
4 versus Die Hard 1 through 4. That's like a mega episode. That's a mega versus mode. But yeah, so that leads to a good segue, which is like, so the one thing that's always stood out to me of this movie, like even as a young lad, like of like it doesn't work and I never understood it, was the swift, like almost like warp speed romance with Riggs and Rika, followed by her death. And it's so fucking weird to me, and this is like the crux of why I nominated this. It's like I think it would have been sufficient for them to like kidnap Riggs, go to execute him, he survives, but just to tell him that they're the ones that killed his wife, like would have been sufficient, right? And it seemed weird to me, like that he would need additional motivation. If you're gonna suppose that this is a guy that's gonna go like on a revenge, like, you know, homicidal rampage because of the death of a loved one, I don't think you need to multiply it by two, but I don't know. So we'll get into that. So that's why I nominated it. And my first question to you is, how do you personally define what makes a good romance, like in a film? Like, what is your personal definition? You can be as brief or in detail as you want.
Chemistry.
Yeah, well, that's another question that's another one that we'll get to in a second. That is one of the questions I have. Chemistry. Okay. Yep. I think that's important.
Chemistry.
That's it.
I mean, because you can show chemistry a lot of different ways. Like you can have very minimalistic scenes and dialogue and sell a romance if like you have the right actors and they're doing the right things to kind of like show at least like a physical chemistry with like body language. But you can also show chemistry with like a really well written witty banter back and forth. Like anything that shows chemistry will sell a romance to me. But just being like, hey, you want a bone? And the other person's like, yeah, that's not.
He gives her half a beer, you know, like, and makes something. I don't remember what food they ate, but it didn't sound great. Like, but anyway.
No, not selling it. I would have walked out. Sorry, Riggs.
I was gonna say, like, it's hard to imagine like a very professional like woman who probably makes good decent money, like walking into the situation and being like, all right, yeah. I don't know. Anyway, how about you, Will? What makes a good romance in a film for you?
Having characters that do things that make sense. Not just the chemistry, but also like
Reasonable.
if you have somebody who's like pressuring you in the grocery store to go on a date, maybe don't do that. Or if you have somebody who tells you what they're going to do, you get to his place and he does the exact opposite of what he claims he was going to do, probably leave. If his house gets shot up by a shit ton of machine gun fire from a helicopter, maybe don't invite him to stay at your place after. So I joke, but I think that was mostly it. I think it was so, like, I could buy it at first when she thought he was playful and goofy, but then when it just got really, when he started like pressuring her so much, and then it just got like, the action just got upped to like 100, that I thought, nah, that doesn't work. I think if there had been more interaction, more chemistry, like May mentioned, and more of a reason for it to have, like, for these characters to be interested to spend more time together, I think that would have been a better way to try and handle it. But I don't think that there was necessarily enough time, let alone enough reason in the plot to do that. But yeah, making sense. Chemistry and making sense.
No pun intended, given how Rika goes out, but I think like a good romance should be allowed to like breathe, like in a film. Like there should be like some sort of progression and like evolution of it to believe it. And I think like one of the biggest problems I've had with this film, aside from the obvious things that we've kind of touched on already, is that like it happens so fast. Like in a night, like we're meant to believe that like he cares so deeply for this person that like, you know, like it's like the straw. And I know they tie his wife into the whole thing, but like I don't know, man. I just think there's not enough time like for us to really deeply care about her or believe that there's anything sort of like a physical attraction there, right? And so then naturally she just becomes a plot device, and then it kind of leads us to where we are now, where it's like, what was the point other than that? And I think the answer is pretty obvious, right? So yeah, that's how I define just time. I mean, I don't need Gone with the Wind like running time like to you know, to believe it, but I think like the good, like the classic, like the great romances, like, you know, take a bit to get going, right? Even if it's Casablanca and you just get like a series of like quick little like flashbacks to kind of like bring you up to speed on like the history, like that's effective even, right?
Yeah.
Like I think so.
I like
Cool.
how you mentioned Gone with the Wind as a great romance, because
No, no, no,
Dude.
no. I did not. No, I was not. Let me be clear. Let me be clear. I was just saying, like, I don't need that runtime, like, to believe it. I was just using it as a strictly a time measurement of time. In America, we don't like to use the metric system or anything normal for a measure of time. So I was just saying, Gone with the
Nope.
Wind, length of time to develop a romance is not needed. I think we established all very clearly here that that was not a healthy or functional relationship. So if you didn't watch that episode, fuck you, first of all, for not supporting the podcast. And second of all, you should. But all right. Next question here on the agenda is let's talk about the meet cute, if you could call it that, which I suppose you could technically say it is at the like house where they have the initial sort of gunfight. You could also say it's where he shoots out the aquarium tank and what's his little one-liner like with his boss's fish where he walks out and she kind of giggles about it. But really the grocery store, I guess, is what I would probably like establish is like really like the true. But I'm interested to hear what you guys think as far as like what would be the actual one.
I think he said we were shooting the breeze and also the fish.
Yeah, there you go.
Or something along those lines.
Yeah.
I mean, I generally say the meet cute is like when people first meet generally. So I would say at the house, and
Okay.
I feel bad. I went to get water during that scene, so I actually didn't see how she got into the cop car. I'm imagining he like arrested her, right?
No, like
Yeah, she left. Actually, she went back into the. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just say they're told like, hey, like these people are off limits and like
Yeah.
they're part of the consulate. So like Riggs and
No, but
Murtaugh just have
like
to
when
fuck off.
he puts her in the police car, correct?
No, I think she goes away. I think like everyone's just left to their own recognizance and
Yeah,
like Riggs.
Arjan's like, you're part of the consulate and she can't
Okay.
tell you anything and she's not supposed to talk to you, and then like orders her to come back inside. Yeah.
Okay. I see. Anyway, yeah. So that to me it just reads like she wants to get back inside and he's being goofy and annoying and she's humoring him so she can get back inside.
You also
Like,
see that coming from a mile away. I feel like too, where you're like, well, I mean, well, obviously I nominated for this category, so probably you guys could use the powers of deduction to be like, but anyway, I'm sure like so. I think the first time Marianne saw this, she's like, please God, like Riggs and like Murtaugh's daughter are going to be a thing now that she's of age, and I was like, oh, no, like that's like because in the first movie, anyway, there's that whole subplot where she's kind of obsessed with them. And I was glad they didn't go down that road. But anyway, sorry to interrupt you, May.
I'm also glad they didn't go down that road, but this one was just rough in a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like the meet cute. Whether you say it's that run in or the run in at the office or the run in at the grocery store, frankly, because in all those cases, like Riggs is like showed himself to be a very erratic and violent person and someone that she may or may not know like how he's involved with her boss. And so I don't know if I was in her position, which I wouldn't be because I wouldn't work for a South African fascist, but if I was in her position, like the constant threat of violence hanging over your head makes you fairly compliant, and the fact that she was still saying no pretty explicitly in that grocery store made it even more uncomfortable.
From like a logical perspective, right? Like, because she doesn't know what her boss is up to. She shows up and like the cops have like shot up this dude's house. And then Riggs has come to his office and shot out his fish tank. Right? Like, and then he's insisting that you go like on a date with him. Like, and maybe she has some inkling that like there's some bad shit, but like from her perspective, it kind of looks like the cops are just harassing her boss, like for God knows like what reason, and like antagonizing him, which is pretty wild.
I mean, I think she's also poorly written in that like she would have some inkling. Like she would kind of know. She probably lies to herself a bit, but she would know. Like,
yeah, you'd hope so. She claims not to. She's like, oh, he's a bad man, isn't he? And it's like,
yeah, she's just written so innocent and it's weird. because she's very complicit too. Like I think she gets let off the hook way too easily.
She does die, but no, I'm kidding.
She gets bridged.
Am I suddenly pro fridging? What is this?
Like, hey, actually, now I've talked myself out of it. I think that what's up?
Oh, I was gonna say anything else to add for the
No,
meet
no.
cute?
I would, but I don't. This is gonna sound mean, but I don't think there's much else to add. It's just not a whole lot to work with to begin with. But I think it does start at the car. That's that's where we get introduced to the character. That's where both meet. That's where Riggs and Rika meet. But I think that yeah, it's just weird. It's just a backdrop to the action sequence that's about to happen with the car chase, which was much better anyways. That's pretty much it. That's all I've got.
Yeah, fair enough. But I think we all agree it's not much of anything really.
No, and like the quirky girl dialogue they put for her makes no sense. First of all, for her build, she eats water, I'm sure. Like probably literally that carrot in her basket is all she eats all day. And her quirky like flirty dialogue is like, oh well, I know I shop every day. You can't shop for the week because I never know what I want to eat the next day or whatever, and it's supposed to be like all suggestive. And it's like you clearly don't eat. Like it's
Yeah,
just
that
weird.
carrot that's probably for the week. That's her meal planning. Like
Yeah.
cut it into 7 slices. Yeah. Oh
It's just
boy.
it's bad dialogue. It's really bad dialogue.
That and the baseball metaphor, like and this sex, I'm like, what? Like I've heard of baseball metaphors when you're talking about like how far you're going, like first base, second base, but like innings, I was not aware of this measure of of coitus. So somebody needs to like fill me in on what constitutes an inning. But anyway,
Clearly it's an LA in the 80s thing.
yeah, I guess so.
I would like to give a shout out to the version of the movie I watched with some funky subtitles that decided that they
Yeah.
couldn't understand what was being said by Riggs about the baseball metaphor, and instead had in the bottom it was like question mark, question mark, question mark, bend her up. And I'm like, no, it was batter up. I'm like, how did you not hear that?
Oh boy.
Suffice it to say, the version I got was like, for our listeners, I got a version that was in fact the actual like uncut version of the film, swearing and all, like nothing was modified. But with the subtitles on, it was the weirdest experience I've ever had. I mean, it was a DVD, so it's been around for a while, but I don't know. Like, I don't know who they got to do subtitles for that film, but it was a treat in the fact that it was like they censored every bit of language with like the exception of like anytime somebody said damn, you couldn't say goddamn, but you could say damn. And it felt like watching an old like dubbed like this. It was basically like if you had the subtitles to a dubbed TV film from like
Yeah.
the 90s, and that's what they used because it was like no F-bombs, nobody's saying shit. It's all getting reworded into like a polite phrase or something. And so it was like I'm watching and reading two different movies at the same time, which
It's
is
kind of like
really
the Big
sort of
Lebowski on
disorienting.
TV when it's like you never meet a stranger in the Alps or whatever. Like they changed that whole like line too, like over and over again. But yeah.
Nice.
I'm just
But
I'm
yeah.
just imagining your subtitle guy, Will, listening to the innings talk and being like, this ain't sexy. I can do better. Just
Bend her
writing
up,
Yeah.
bro. Bend her up.
Bend her up. Yeah.
You need to get a pillow
Yeah.
under there now. Oh my goodness. So don't have to spend a lot of time on this one, but like pretty straightforward. Like, how would you rate the chemistry?
All right. I'll
Is it Walter White? Like in other words, like is it like immaculate, like beautiful chemistry, or are we talking to Jesse Pinkman?
ooh. Um or like the whatever would be the equivalent of the dude they melted in like a bathtub.
Oh yeah,
Ooh.
yeah. Oh,
I would have to go, I'm trying to be nice about it because I feel like there was an attempt that was made and there were actors that showed up to do it that were capable. I'll give it a 2 out of 10. I'll give it a 2 out of 10. I'll be gracious. What about
I think
you?
this had the potential to like, given like more time or like maybe multiple movies to be better than it was. But you got to contextualize it. It is the 80s, right? Like
Yeah.
your typical, like, especially like an action movie fare. But I think you're bang on with the 2 out of 10, where it's just like not a whole lot of room for anything to go anywhere. It's just kind of like, I'm going to harass you at the grocery store. I'm going to give you half a beer in a dirty glass. I'm going to bang you, and then you're going to die. Like that's that's the
Right.
progression of events, and it's just not very it's not very elegant. We'll put it that way. Like,
Oh, and also like not fully explain why I'm still wearing a wedding ring.
yeah, he does say it like when she looks at it, because he's like, oh, like, yeah, my wife, like I was married, but I'm not anymore. Like she died. Like there's that like line.
He doesn't say that she died though.
I thought maybe said she's gone. Oh,
He was just like, yeah, we're not married anymore, which is so sus. Like from that conversation, I was pretty sure she thought that he was just cheating.
yeah, oh, could be. I mean, kudos for her
Anyway.
for being like, well, I guess I can do with a feathery haired American side piece, I guess, like while I'm figuring out this consulate business. But
Yeah, I just Patsy Kensit did her best, but Rika's just a very, very badly written character, and their dialogue was terrible, and they had no chemistry. So I'm going to say that the level of chemistry was that of a vacuum.
okay, so you're saying negative, like
Just 0, null,
yeah.
value not found.
Amazing. So we're throwing out some Excel terminology to really like, drive home the point. I will say, like, not to digress too much, I think they like do a really good job in the next 2 films. So they almost like overcorrect a little bit with like the Rene Russo character in 3, where she's like super like tough. Like she's kind of like the woman Riggs, like in a way. You know what I mean? Like way more measured than he is. Like she's not a wild card, but like she's tough and like has sort of a bit of like a problem with authority, like here and there, and she works for internal affairs. And then that romance blossoms nicely into the 4th film. Like I do love, like by the time you get to 4, it's one of the strongest parts of like the franchise. So it's nice to see that that's kind of like where it ends up, and that like she's just not a plot device, like, oh, this is a person in internal affairs that you're gonna sleep with, like that, like that's we're just gonna throw that in as part of the plot. It's like, no, they genuinely do. Like they even have like their like, the 2 dogs that like meet each other and stuff. Like it's real good. Like if you need to be sold on Lethal Weapon 3, there's Doggo like bits
Little
too.
Lady and the Tramp.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Nice.
All right. I think I have just one more. Well, we can kind of pair these 2 things together. So, kind of a 2-part question. Would this movie be any worse if you completely eradicated the romance? And then how would you improve it if you were going to like keep it in the film? Like if you weren't going to eradicate it, like how would you improve it?
It would not suffer if the romance was gone. But if you could improve it by changing something, I would make her actually be a villain and then double cross him at the end.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be good, man. Like
Mm-hmm.
some Spy Games kind of stuff where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Like that to me would justify her erratic behavior, her willingness to sleep with him. And then even if they wanted to pretend that they had killed her and make him think that she was dead, and then her actually still be alive at the end, I think I would have bought into that a lot better. As
It was
for the
me
amount
who
of time
fridged the girlfriend all along, Riggs. Like and drove the wife off the.
Yeah.
It's the long game. It was so she could get closer to Riggs now. That's awesome. Actually, I really like that, man. I think that's it's fabulous.
Will, I'm so happy you said that because I was expecting that to happen the whole time. I was like,
Nice.
okay, when is she going to double cross him? There's no way she's actually being this like patient and in love and head over heels suddenly when she was like, no, 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 leave me alone like 2 hours ago. Um, uh, yeah, I think either having her actually be like fully in the know and portrayed as like an intelligent, conniving person, I would have preferred the like I forget the name. It is another trope. I forget what it's called. The the damn it, I'll look it up later. But that is another trope.
Yeah.
And I would have preferred it to this one. But yeah, I would have just removed the romance altogether, and I would go a step further and say, don't even bring up the wife again. Just
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
maybe have Riggs go nuts because he saw Murto almost die, and that hurts him. I don't know, but yeah.
Because
They
we know what the real relationship is in these movies. It's those two. Like that's
Yeah,
that's the
honestly.
love story, man. That's the love story. You gotta ride that train to the end.
they do their best, like keeping that through line with his like dead wife in a way that like whether it works or not, it's really up to like I guess the viewer. But like all the way up to 4, like it's a big plot point where like Rene Russo wants to get married, like they're gonna have a baby, and he still, like goes to like his wife's grave, and then like, the whole plot of that movie is like him trying to come to grips with like letting that go, like finally, and like remarrying. Again, like whether it's successful or not, is up for debate. But I would agree, like I think that like the way that the first film ends, like you're kind of meant to believe like he's moving on a little bit, and then like this like makes it a point to like just like I don't know, have it be still the central core of like what makes Riggs tick, and like where like why he is the way he is. But I think nothing is lost if you remove the romance from the film. And I think like if you had to keep it in, she refuses the date. Like for going off the dentist system from Sonny, like he demonstrates value by like taking down the bad guys, proving that they're bad guys, and like maybe like at the end of the movie, like she agrees to go on a very public date somewhere, like with him, and like maybe you set it up for like maybe she's there or not, but like it wasn't really much of a thing in the 80s to like just have like a character like decline a date because it doesn't make for um exciting movies watching probably of the time. And then you can't have boobs and butt in this and the obligatory sex scene like of 80s action movies. So
Fair. Also, I found the word I was looking for, and I'm very dumb for forgetting this. I have a cotton ball for brains because I've been sick. It's femme fatale. Should be the femme fatale.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Insert
Nice.
the Velvet Underground song here.
She'll build you up to just put you down. What a clown.
Yes. Yep. That is definitely a favorite like film noir term. And even that like as a tropey thing has been done well and like in fun ways, like if you play with it. But I'm gonna go ahead and like, spoiler alert, like the people behind the Lethal Weapon franchise like are not like ones to play with conventions. Like they know what the audience wants. Like these films get very formulaic very quickly. So well, I will give you guys a couple minutes if anybody wants to add any final thoughts on Lethal Weapon 2, specifically the romance. Otherwise, we can move into a fun little game.
I think the real romance, hands down, is definitely Riggs and Murtaugh. That moment they shared right before they had to jump into that tub because that toilet was going to blow up.
I know.
No, I kid. But like however you want to read their relationship, just as two best buddies or whatever. Like the friendship they share in these films is what makes them. And I agree. Like that's the best point about any of them. The toilet scene in particular, I guess my only thought is They couldn't figure out a way to defuse a tiny bomb like that. They couldn't
Best we can do is blow it up. Like,
I mean, like, he was on there for like 12 hours already. Like, his legs are down. Clearly, it's not going to do anything if he just stays there. So, can't you just like shimmy down under there and just like clip the right wire? But apparently not. We have to blow up the man's house. Like,
there's a similar
progressively
plot
loses.
point, like
Oh, was it?
defusing a bomb, that is my favorite cold open to like any of the Lethal Weapon movies. So this
Oh, yeah.
movie starts the trend of like the opening sequence is like in media res, however you say that, like expression of like, or in media res, right? Yeah, media
I
res.
think so.
Anyway, like they're just in the middle of like chasing somebody or in some sort of like bad situation, and it's a bomb defusal, and it is one of the funniest fucking like culminations of like what actually happens. Like I laugh my ass off every time I watch it. But yeah, no, I agree. Like, dude, like this like well, this franchise in particular is like the template for like how to do a successful buddy cop movie, right?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
I was just gonna say with regards to the shoehorn romance, if I were doing a Lethal Weapon movie, the way I would do the romance is I think she got killed off this movie, sadly, but I would take that like pretty badass female cop
mhm.
and make
Mm.
her the love interest and make essentially Riggs have to kind of like choose partners
Mhm.
and have that
Nice.
be the conflicts.
Oh yeah. Then you could do like
Nice.
your second act, like it blows up in his face because both people are mad at him, his best bud and his potential romantic partner. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, yep. Yeah, kind of do that with Lethal Weapon 3, although like I said, she's internal affairs, so she's trying to determine if they're like dirty or not, and then there's like a whole subplot. But
How do you define dirty in this franchise?
there's a very specific investigation, like, so like the third movie, even though it is not perfect at all, like has a really interesting plot point that's about police corruption. And I want to say like it was like around the time of like that task force that was like a big shame of the LAPD, like where they were like I think 1,000 cops or like several hundred at least that were like indicted like on a mass corruption scale. So like it covers that as like a topic. And then in case you were wondering, and you probably weren't, but whatever, like Lethal Weapon 4 is great because it adds Jet Li, Chris Rock, and I feel like one other person like to the cast, but it's like a very like robust, like fun, like potentially final outing. Like I saw that there's a fifth one in development that's not Sunny related. Uh, but yeah, like we'll see. Richard Donner's dead though, so I don't know without him. Like
Mm.
if it would have the same magic because he did all four of them. But yeah, okay. Well, last little bit of trivia that blew my mind when I was watching one to get to this is I had no idea Eric Clapton did all the guitar riffs and stuff. Did you? Like, I mean,
Nice.
like until I watched it, like I was just like reading trivia and I was like, get the fuck out of here. Like, really? That's wild. I don't know if he was like hard up for money or what, but like like some of those riffs are pretty memorable.
Mhm.
But yeah.
They're
Nice.
certainly they add emphasis for sure. Same with the
Yeah.
saxophone.
Yeah, like, well, because Murtaugh is the saxophone and Riggs is like the guitar, so like that's kind of like supposed to be like the jazz and the rock like comparison. And yeah,
Mhm.
thank you guys for sitting through Lethal Weapon 2, which hopefully someday leads you to watch the other two, or maybe even go back to the original at Christmas. It is a fun film, I think better than average for sure, like action movie with some really heartfelt moments. So, and no fridging in that one at all.
Good.
So for our final segment, we're going to play another round of movie 20 questions. So I have a film right up here, and my co-host have 20 questions to guess the film, with the 20th question obviously needing to be a guess. In case I didn't clarify this, you get one guess and one guess only. So an incorrect guess ends the game. So be careful.
Okay.
So go for it.
Should we ask if there's a prominent animal character?
Let's do it.
Chris, is there a prominent animal character in your film? Up in your
Yes.
noggin? Nice.
Okay. I want to. Should I ask if it's a Disney movie?
You could. That'll narrow out quite a few.
Yeah. Is it a
Mhm.
Disney movie?
No.
Nice.
It could technically be Pixar though.
It's true. Do we want to ask if our animal character talks?
Yes. Do that.
Does our animal character talk?
No.
Okay. I feel like it could be a comedy. Should I ask if it's a comedy?
Good.
Does it seem like a good use of our fourth question?
I don't really think I have a good gauge on that. Mostly because of how we just kind of winged it the last time and it worked. So I have faith in however we want to. I have no strategy. I'll put it that
Okay,
way.
wonderful. We're on the same page then. Our strategy is to have no strategy. It's really galaxy brained.
This is like Riggs and Murtaugh. We just go in, guns blazing, and somehow it will all work out okay.
Oh gosh. Is it a comedy, Chris?
No.
Okay. Prominent animal figure, and it's not Disney, that it doesn't talk, and it's not a comedy.
Hmm.
Should I ask if the animal does cocaine?
I mean, I want you
it could
to.
be two films there.
I was gonna say, I want you to. And you know what? I'll allow it. I'd say go for it.
Yes, does the animal do cocaine?
No.
Okay.
Aw, too bad. Do we want to keep going with like genres, or do we want to ask about like a time frame, or are we thinking
Time frame seems useful.
like after the 90s? Are we thinking like time frame like when the film takes place, or time frame of when it was released?
When it's released helps me the most. I don't know about you.
Okay. Sounds good. Are we thinking released after the night, like during or after the 90s?
Yeah, I think that's a good cutoff.
Okay. Was the film released either during or after the 90s, Chris?
Gotta be yes or no question.
That is yes or no.
We said, was it released either during or after the 90s? Oh, so you're saying 1990 forward, basically?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
No.
Okay.
Okay. So, fine.
It's harder than it looks to.
Keep your hands where I can see them, Chris.
You can't skip finger day.
Okay.
Gonna get you
Elbow
tiny
day,
dumbbells for this.
It's elbow day mainly.
All right.
Okay. I love how we actually like we're thinking that this character is. I mean, we did ask if it was like a prominent character, or did we just ask if there was an animal in
We
the?
said prominent.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Does play some important part.
Should I ask if it's the title character?
Yeah, sure.
Is the animal a title character?
Oh, got him thinking.
I would say like
Mhm.
it's hard. That's a really hard one to answer. Not like technically, but I would
Okay.
say like the title, like it's not the animal's name. Like it's hard. Like I will explain, but I can give you a freebie on that one if you want.
Okay. So that's good to know. If we stump him, then it doesn't
It's
count.
true.
No, I just don't like want to feel responsible for misleading you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that. So before the 90s, do we want to ask for a more specific time frame or a more specific genre? Would that help?
I'm wondering if if it's got an animal, are we thinking that the protagonists are probably children, or that they're adults? Is that something that would help narrow it down a bit more, maybe?
Yes.
Were the well, I guess it'll be easier if I ask if it's children. Were the protagonists of the film children, Chris?
No.
Okay.
All right. So they could be adults or they could be other animals. This could be all animals.
Mm.
This could be Planet Earth, the movie. Or what's that one about the penguins?
March of the Penguins.
Yeah.
Happy Feet.
Oh, that'd be so funny if I did March of the Penguins.
I'm always see. It's funny because like we were talking about Gremlins, and this just all makes me feel like this is the direction that we're turning to. But I feel like there was a kid in that, so I'm not really gonna. Nah, and it wouldn't be that obvious, right?
Yeah. I feel like you wouldn't pre-spoil it for us.
No. Or would he? Would he fridge us on this?
Oh no. That means I'm going. You're safe.
Or if it's the gladiator treatment, we're both fucked. But the
Yeah.
Okay. Man. I guess we could do another.
I think I want to ask if it's horror because that would be
Mhm.
drastically different questions otherwise. Yeah. Okay. Is it a horror movie?
Yes.
Oh, see?
Okay. Okay.
Prominent
Before the
animal.
90s, prominent animal horror movie. Oh man. Yo, I'm not gonna guess it, but I think it would be really funny if it's like Cujo.
Yeah. I haven't seen a lot of like pre-90s horror films though.
Now I have to think about Cujo and what happens in it.
Yeah.
That was like something that I mean, I guess I could go with the is it based on a Stephen King novel?
Yes, do that.
Is it based on a Stephen King novel, Chris?
No.
Ah, all right, nice.
Mm.
Ooh, maybe it's like that movie, The Thing, that has the dog at the beginning. It's actually related to the plot that I won't say
Wait.
anything more about for people that haven't watched the movie.
Yeah, the thing is a good one because the thing is kind of an animal, kind of not.
Mm-hmm. I could ask if there's an alien in
Yeah,
the
do
movie.
that.
Is there an alien in the movie, Chris?
No.
No aliens, though. Okay.
Could it be like a really old horror movie, like Creature from the Black Lagoon or something?
That would be it's a good idea. Do we want to ask if it has like trying to think about the best way to ask something like that, like
How
a
about
supernatural creature?
yeah,
Or...
is the animal a real life animal?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
That's 10. 10 questions.
All right.
Nice.
Okay. When did the Babadook come out? That was
That is
more
a good
recent,
question.
right?
I feel like it was, but can I check that or is that cheating?
Well, is it okay if I ask if it's a Hitchcock adaptation
Sure, go for it.
or a Hitchcock film? Is it a Hitchcock film?
No.
Thinking about the
Yeah.
birds.
Yeah, when you mentioned that. Horror movie, prominent animal, no aliens. It's a real animal. It's not Hitchcock. It's not Stephen King.
It's pre-1990.
I kind of want to ask if it stars Jamie Lee Curtis.
Our Scream Queen.
Yeah.
Are there animals in any of the Halloween movies?
I don't know if it was like a prominent one, but didn't the dog get like choked by Jason in one of them?
Maybe.
I feel like
Did you just say Jason was in Halloween, Will?
I'm
For
sorry,
shame.
Michael Myers.
Oh.
I get my horror franchises confused. It's the
No.
Gregory Peck and Cary Grant phenomenon all over again.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Mike Myers like choked out a dog,
Yeah.
but I don't know if that really counts because I don't know how prominent that dog was in the film.
Do you want to ask if the movie is part of a larger franchise?
Yes.
Okay. Is the movie a part of a larger franchise?
Yes.
Okay, that's helpful.
Mm.
I know this isn't it, but were there any like Air Bud horror movies?
They need to reboot Air Bud as a horror film. I would pay to watch that.
Yeah.
Like the dark version of Winnie the Pooh that's coming.
Scarebud. That's what they call it.
Nice.
It writes itself. Okay.
Man, once you said it was a franchise, now I'm even more tempted to wonder if it's no franchises from before the 90s that were horror. That's rough because that is not a good area for me in terms
me
of my
neither.
knowledge. Because the only stuff I really know of from that would be whether it's the Halloween movies or Jason. Sorry, Michael Myers. Or
does Evil Dead have like the first one? Because I only watched the second one for the podcast. Does the first Evil Dead have like a prominent animal?
I don't remember there being one.
Okay.
Hopefully I'm correct in that.
All right, what should we ask more questions about?
I still want to ask if Jamie Lee Curtis is in it.
Do it.
Is Jamie Lee Curtis in this film, Chris?
No.
No.
I kind of want to ask, like, yes or no still, but like if the animal is a dog or cat, because if it's not like a typical pet animal, that might help.
Okay, go for it.
Do you think that's a good question?
I do. Yeah.
Okay. Is the animal a dog or cat?
No.
All right. Is Free Willy considered a horror movie?
90s. I don't know. Better watch out. That orca will F you up, dude.
It's called a killer whale.
This has had enough cocaine in it. No. And the taste for human blood. Franchise.
I'm really stumped. All right, let's just list some horror franchises to get the brain juices flowing. So we know it's not Halloween.
No.
We think it's probably not Evil Dead.
No.
It's probably not Scream either. Didn't that come out in the 90s?
Yep.
Yeah.
We don't think that he'd do a switcheroo on us and talk Gremlins, so that's out.
Yeah. Saw. What about Saw?
That's 90s, I think.
I can give you guys a recap to the best of my ability if you want.
That would be great. Yeah.
Okay.
So it is an animal that's a prominent character, although not technically the title character. Not saying that there is a title character, but it's pre-1990s. You know that it is a real animal. You know that is not a Stephen King adaptation. You know it's not a cat or dog.
Not Hitchcock.
Not Hitchcock. No aliens. No Jamie Lee Curtis.
No.
Part of franchise.
I was gonna say I don't suppose the Never-Ending Story was a horror. Maybe considered by some.
Scarred our childhoods. And E.T. doesn't count because that has an alien.
E.T. is a horror movie.
We've discussed. The animal could be a horse. I'm trying to think of like what other common animals it could be.
Oh, you know what? Maybe it's a
Is The Godfather considered a horror movie from a horse's perspective?
Nice. Well, he said it wasn't the. So, if I remember correctly, Chris said that it wasn't the title character, correct?
Yes, but in kind of a strained way. So it's like kind of.
So, like Jaws would be the name of the film, but it's not the name of the shark.
Wait, that might be it. What did Jaws come out?
Because it is a franchise. I'm feeling like that was 80s.
Can I ask if it was a shark? Should I ask that?
Yeah.
Is the animal a shark?
Yes.
All right. Before we guess it, Are there any
Yeah.
other shark horror movies?
That's 15.
that have been
You know what?
franchises?
Truthfully, at this point, I am willing to put money on Jaws.
Yeah.
I don't know of any other shark horror movies. I feel like Jaws is the definitive shark horror movie. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe
Should I
mean,
ask?
Chris,
Should I ask? Does is asking Chris if this is one of his favorite movies count as a fair question?
that he watches every year. Or ask him, is it not safe to go on the beach for the holidays in this movie?
Yeah, do that one.
Or is there a mayor that denies that there is in fact said shark? Chris, is there a mayor in this film that denies that said shark is a menace?
Yes.
Okay. Is it Jaws?
It is. Jaws. Released in
I love it.
1975.
Yeah.
It is
Amazing.
widely considered to be the first blockbuster, which led to the cadence of summer releases for major tentpole films and franchises. It is Jaws. And not that you were in any real danger of getting it wrong. Technically, there are lots of horror shark films and quite a few before 1990, but most of them were knockoffs and forgettable, like sort of attempts to recapture the magic of Jaws. Most of them foreign films as well.
Yeah, isn't there like a Megalodon series or something? That's technically not a shark.
That's recent. Deep Blue Sea was a horror like film, but it wasn't part of a franchise from the 90s. Open Water, I know, was another one in the 2000s, and then I think there's one called The Reef. But of course, I wouldn't do that to you guys. I picked the biggest and baddest of them all, which is a nice little reminder. Yeah. Oh, that would have been great. Is there a shark and a weather event? Yes, so it is one of my 5 favorite films. It is in my top 5, a movie that I watch annually. So nice job, y'all, getting that in, I think, on the 16th guess. So pretty good.
Nice. We're improving.
Figured it was appropriate given that we're coming up on 4th of July in another couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Right. Well, hey, let's switch to our deck and see what we're watching. I'm gonna declare, if it's okay with you all, like a moratorium on like Chris films, at least for like one round here. Is that all right with y'all?
Yes.
Sure.
So if we draw a Chris film, we will draw again. And I don't believe this is going to be a Chris film based on the number, but hold please. This is going to be Origin Story, which is one of our new film categories. And I'm pretty sure this is going to be a Will film based on the number. But hold while I confirm. This category is talk about a film that launched a genre, movement, narrative structure, etc. So something that's groundbreaking in some way. And speaking of the word ground, it is going to be Groundhog Day. It is a Will pick.
Oh,
we'll
yeah.
be talking about Groundhog Day.
I've
been kind of enjoying. Yeah, I've never actually seen this. Can you believe it? Like, never, ever. Yeah.
I've seen a movie you haven't seen, Chris.
Indeed. Yeah. Hey, listen, I will own up to it. It's one of those blind spots, but my understanding is once you watch it, you have to watch it again and again, right? Like forever. That's why I've avoided it. That's how it goes. Okay.
I have it on right now. You just can't see.
Oh shit. So I've kind of been enjoying like asking you guys why you nominated a particular film, as long as it's not like a spoiler. So like very top level, because I know we're going to get into the nitty gritty. But like, why did you nominate this one?
I think the concept's interesting. I think it's funny that it's sort of become its own genre of film that people will use as a plot device, either as a parody of it or as something serious for whatever the story is, that whether they're playing it serious or they're playing it for laughs. I think it's interesting to think about what you would do if you were in the same situation. But I also think it's interesting to talk about it from the perspective of how you could abuse it very easily, which does also present itself in the film. So I don't know. It's just a really strange but also entertaining movie that I haven't seen in a while. So I hope going back I won't be like, what, like kind of have like shock about that didn't age well. Because I'm pretty sure there's gonna be some parts that haven't based on what I can remember. But yeah. But that's mostly what.
Well, that's exciting. I feel like during the pandemic there was like a slew of like loop movies and shows, right? Like Palm Springs comes to mind, and what was the Natasha Lyonne one? That was like Russian Doll. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to watch it. I know it's very influential. It's Harold Ramis, right? Directed with Bill Murray in it. Pretty
I want
sure.
to say, yeah.
I think that's what
I
ended
believe
their
so.
friendship for a while until Harold Ramis got terminally ill and like they squashed the beef. But yeah, cool. Well, I'm really like genuinely looking forward to this. I'll report back next week, obviously. And that does it for the episode. Thank you, May. Thank you, Will, for hanging in there and talking some Lethal Weapon 2. Thank you, audience members, for watching and supporting the show. Remember, you can find us on Twitter at ScreenQuestPod. And of course, you can send in your nominations with the attached Google form on the episode description, both on YouTube and podcast services around the world. Until next time, we love you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Let me tell you, can I give you two guys a friendly piece of advice, okay? Don't ever go up to the drive-thru, okay? Always walk up to the counter. You know why? Okay, I'm gonna say it. Okay. They fuck you at the drive-thru, okay? They fuck you at the drive-thru. They know you're gonna be miles away before you find out you got fucked, okay? They know you're not gonna turn around and go back. So they don't care who gets fucked. Oh, Leo gets. Okay, sure. I don't give a fuck. I'm not eating this tune, okay?
Shut up!